What the f...
Demand repentance! Cough up your boy! Please! I surrender!
Shut up and bleed, you mother.
That was easy.
Huh?
Stop right there, criminal scum. Nobody breaks the law on my watch.
No, 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 no! Wait, 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 wait! Wait, 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 wait!
Visions to rest.
Hello everyone, Uncle here. In this video I'm going to show this build I came up with based on a Skaven runner. And for those who doesn't know what that means, these are red people like assassins from Warhammer universe. So first things first, in every build video that I upload I will tell you how effective it is. If it works in all stages from the game, that means early, mid and end game, and how hard it is to obtain the required items. And this one I consider a reasonable, strong build. It can even be used as your first build if it is your first playthrough of the game. That means you can early on start playing as a guard runner. But some items to acquire are going to be a bit annoying, especially to obtain certain talismans. But that I will cover in that chapter of this video. FYI, all the footage of this video were captured on my New Game Plus run. That doesn't mean this build doesn't work on a new game. It is just that I first playtested it build through the entire game. I have footage of that, but I prefer to record again with a cleaner visual with HUD off, better view where some items are, stuff like that. So let's start from which class you should pick. Getting one thing out of the way real quick, it is not obligatory which class you start any build, because you can eventually get the attribute points and items required for a build with any starting class. What a class brings most for a specific build is optimization. In other words, avoiding attribute points spent in what you are not going to be using, or niche weapons or items that will make more compatible with your build early on that will make your progress easier. If you already started a new game, you can adjust to this build with no problems. In this case of this build, I choose starting with the Bandit class for two main reasons. First, because this class has the higher amount of attribute points, this build is focused on Vigor, Dexterity and Arcane. And second, it starts with the Great Knife, which is a dagger that will be used in this build, and some of the armor may be what you ended up using anyway. When it comes to attribute points, I'm going to show you how I did and explain why I do like that. First, I like to set all required attribute points to be able to use the weapon of a build. In this case, just one more point in Dexterity to bring it to 14 points so the claws can be used. After that, I went all in for Vigor until I reached 14 points in it. Why did I go for health points instead of something else to increase damage? Because early in game the weapons does not scale very well with attributes if the weapon didn't reach a high level. If you go early on hunting farming for the smith, somber stones, to upgrade the weapons, then it's more appealing going for attributes that will increase the weapon's damage. Of course, you play the game the way you like, but from my experience, focus on health and just the necessary attribute points just to be able to use weapons chosen for the playthrough made my game so much more enjoyable. It also fits better my playstyle, which is take time, exploring, killing most of the bosses in the game.
Well, almost all bosses, because I always ignore the shitty perfume smell of Mispec out at on-site catacombs, the most useless place in this game.
After reaching 40 in Vigor, start leveling up your Arcane attribute. This will help you proc bleed on enemies more often. For now your damage will come out mostly from bleeding the enemy. Then start leveling up Dexterity, also aiming at level 40. This will help with your physical damage attacks. When you reach level 40 in Dexterity, it will be time to start fine-tuning this build. At this point in the game, enemies attack are more powerful, so going for 15 Vigor is a good option. Then distribute the next attribute points in Arcane or Dexterity. Pay attention to see which one increases the attack rate of your weapons the most to take advantage of. But give priority for Arcane because the weapons will be set to Occult and Poison Affinity, and these scale better with Arcane. And the reason I say also to spend some points on Dexterity is because it has some scale with it. Not as much as Arcane, but still. And sometimes when upgraded between Arcane and Dexterity, one will increase your attack rate more than the other. And finally, with the remaining levels, you may want to increase your endurance levels so you can have more stamina points, which helps a lot keeping attacking without running out of stamina. By the way, from the start of the run, at any point my equip load didn't pass the medium load threshold. So with only 10 endurance I was able to have 2 daggers, 2 claws, the armor set, and 4 talismans equipped with no problem. If you're finding yourself using too much weapon skills, you may consider spend some attribute points on mining to mitigate that. My build ended up like this. Because I did not stop at a specific level, I cannot say with precision on how the points should be distributed at said level because I was having fun with the build and didn't stop playing even after finishing the game. This part is optional by the way, but there are 2 ways you can use the weapons. I will be covering that soon enough in the playstyle chapter. For the second playstyle, it requires 10 points in faith, so incantation can be used, which is only 2 more if you pick the bandit class. All of this is for you to have an idea how the build will end up on the attributes requirement. I am sure you got the idea on how to distribute the attribute points. If you think it's better leveling up in a different order, go ahead, your game, your rules.
Or if you want to bitch about on how should I have done, feel free to type an essay on the comments. I won't answer to you, but it will be helping me by interact with this video.
Huh?
When it comes to weapons, it is finally time to give this tarnish a Skaven identity. Let me make this clear, I'm not an expert on Warhammer, but from my experience with games like Vermintide and Total War Warhammer, and general information on the gutter runners, I came up with the following traits for the weapons. They use sharp swords or sharp bladed claws, most of the time covered in poison. I select the following weapons for this build. Let's start with the daggers. And the reason is because you already started with one dagger, the Great Knife. Not my choice for the aesthetic of this build. I had chosen the Bloodstained dagger, but when I got it, I realized that it scaled with strength instead of dexterity. So instead I kept the Great Knife from the start of the game because not only scales better with dexterity, it also has bleed built into the weapon. But if you want to use the Bloodstained dagger, feel free to do so, but with the Great Knife you will be doing more physical damage. The Great Knife requires 6 attribute points in strength and 12 points in dexterity, in case you start the game with another class other than a bandit. By the way, I'm going to start calling dexterity Dex because I have problem pronouncing. Also, one more thing about the Great Knife. It can only be dropped by the demi-humans that use this weapon. That is the only way to obtain this weapon other than starting as a bandit. To pair with the Great Knife, you will be using the Reduvia, aka Eltuvia. This is a really good dagger, especially early in game. You can get it by defeating the Invader Bloodfinger Nereidus, whatever, located here in front of Murky Water Cave. It requires 13 points in Dex, 13 in Arcane, 5 in Strength, and 2 brain cells capable of making a synapse between them. If you start as a bandit, then you can use this weapon on the get-go. Its skill, called Reduvia Bloodblade, releases a small blood wave that doesn't travel that far, but is enough to give you some range attack. It is also worth noting that if you use this skill while on melee range of an enemy and hit it with the blade, you will be doing double the damage of the skill and blood loss build up. For now, these 2 daggers should be enough to carry you until you get some.
Claws.
You can get the Repton Talons early on by using the Altus Plateau elevator and going into the Sage's Cave, located here on the map. It will be inside a chest near the end of this cave. Also take the chance to grab the Raptor's Black Feathers chest piece, located just a bit ahead from where you just acquired the claws. It requires 6 strength and 14 dex attribute points. The second option for claws is the Hook Claws. They are located at Castle Stormvale. It is in the secret passage that Gothic advised you to take, near this bunch of barrels and crates guarded by the Barrel Lover. It requires 8 strength and 14 dex to wield it. And the third option is the Bloodhound Claws, located at Volcano Manor. You need to kill the Bloodhound Knight that is in the dark corner of the secret passage in the manor. It requires 10 strength and 15 dex to wield it.
Hello.
So there you have it, 3 claws options.
Oh, fuck.
In my playthrough, I went for the Hook Claws and the Raptor Claws. You choose which one you wanna use. This build will work both around power stance and 2 weapons, or double handling one. I will tell you on playstyle chapter why to use 2 weapons of the same class and also why it's not required to be 2. Now for the unfortunately part of this selection. They all require Smithstone to upgrade. And that is one of the aspects of this game that I fucking hate. There isn't enough Smith in this. Yes, I know that Skavens do use magic, but this is a good.
I see. Assuming direct control in this video production to make YouTube friendly.
Now to the topic of Ashes of War and which affinity to choose. There isn't much choice if you wanna keep the Skaven theme as authentic as possible. Well, for the L2 you cannot change your skill, it is special for it, so it's out of the way. But for both claws and daggers there are some options. Let's see first what are the Ashes of War that works for both type of weapons. Impaling Thrust.
That's depressing.
It is this forward step move that gives us a bit of a melee range, something that all weapons in this build lack. Obtainable by buying from Bernal. Quick Step. For some cool looking dodge movements. It is better than the standard dodge animation, but the difference is not huge. The movement of the skill is a bit different than the standard dodge animation. It is a bit more stiff when locked to an enemy, in the meaning that it moves in a more straight line pattern. But that doesn't mean it is worse than the standard dodge animation, quite the opposite. It is easier to get behind enemies with quick step than standard dodge, for example. It is also obtainable by buying from Bernal. Bloodhound Step. Quite similar to quick step, but it has the fastest movement on foot in game. It covers the same distance as 2 rows in medium equip load and 1.5 in light equip load, and also has this invisibility effect when dashing. It is awarded after defeating one of the Lord of the Rings Nazgûl. Located at this bridge in Dragon Barrel, and now the Ashes of War that only works with daggers. Repeating Thrust. This is a stab forward movement. It works great on some enemies, especially staggering them. Also, each hit counts towards status effects build up if the weapon has it. Awarded by defeating the Nazgûl located at this bridge in Wingrave. Blood Tax. Very similar to Repeating Thrust, it heals you with each hit landed on an enemy.
You will die now.
It also counts towards status effects build up. In a short crude overview, repeating thrust does more damage and blood DEX has the healing bonus. Located here in Mogwin Palace. For me the best Ash of War is Bloodhound Steppe, which was the one I used most throughout the game. Like I said earlier, there are two playstyles for this build that I will be talking about real soon in detail, but in short, you can power stance two different weapons from the same class or to handle one of the claws. If you decide to power stance the claws, on your right hand claw you will set the affinity to Occult, or Keen if you haven't acquired the Black Wet Blade yet, and Poison affinity to your left claw. For the daggers it's better to have the El Chuvia on the right hand and the Great Knife on the left. Set the Great Knife's affinity to Poison. So basically, main weapon does physical and bleed damage, and support weapon does poison and bleed damage. For the second playstyle, which only affects the claw's gameplay, you need to set the claw of your choosing to King affinity, because you cannot buff or apply any stats to a weapon set to occult or poison affinity. So the idea here is that you will be using an incantation to apply status effects on the weapon. And we are going to talk about it now, magic spells. So first, sorceries, which there is none. I found out that most magic doesn't fit very well with the roleplay of a gutter runner, so I use none. But if you go for the second playstyle of this build, you will need the incantation Poison Blade. You will use on your claw of a chosen and apply the incantation on the weapon to have this cool looking poisonous blade. It is located here in the Aeonian Swamp. It requires 10 points in faith to be able to use it. Now, if you want to get a Flame Grant Me Strength or Gold Vow to boost even more damage, it is up to you. Because it would deviate from the character, I did not use any of those during my playthrough. Yes, I know that Skavens do use magic, but this is a gutter burner, not a warlock or whatever Skaven that uses magic. Without the supporting incantations, this build is already super heavy on damage, so I imagine these addition buffs will make it even more nasty. To compensate for the lack of magic, this build will be using more craft items instead. Now let's move on to the talismans. For this build, talismans are very important. They will buff a lot of damage. A small problem is that some of them may take a while to get. In this chapter I will also talk about some talismans that may help you while you don't have the ones required for this build. And the first talisman required for this build is going to be the Kindred's Overwrought Exaltation. Nice name, by the way. Let's call it the Core. This talisman increases 20% of the attack power for 20 seconds when poison or rot stats effects occurs near you. It also includes the case of you suffering these stats effects. Because this build involves a lot of poison and blood loss, this 20% increase is going to be triggered a lot of the time, giving you a nice 20% flat boost in damage most of the time from this talisman alone. It is awarded after defeating the Kindred Overwrought, located at Seethy Water Cave. What the fuck is Seethy? Which is located here in the Altus Plateau. Just an observation, you need 2 stone keys to access this cave. Okay, and speaking of blood loss, the second talisman for this build will be the Lord of Blood Exaltation. Another excellent name, LOL. This one we are going to call This is basically the same thing as the Core. 20% boost in damage, but it triggers when there are blood loss in the vicinity. Also includes the case of you losing blood. It takes a while to get this talisman because it is rewarding by defeating
Esker, Prince of Blood.
He's a shitty boss located at Leyndell Catacombs. You need to navigate through subterranean shunning grounds, also known as the sewer, to get to Leyndell Catacombs, which may be extremely confusing if you don't know the layout of this area. And believe me, I think it took me 4 or 5 playthroughs to finally drill the layout of this area into my thick skull. I'm not going to include here in the video where exactly to get there because it takes time to show the path to take. It will increase a lot of the length of this video, and believe me, when I started editing this video I was hoping for something less than 12 minutes. The next talisman will be the Winged Sword Insignia, which increases your attack power with follow-up hits regardless of the weapon class you are using. Because power stance in claws and daggers attacks are super fast, this talisman is a perfect fit for this build. For every 3 hits you land, your attack power will be increased. It has 3 levels of damage boost that stacks and will make your attack increases in damage for 3, 5 and 10% respectively. These stacks decay after 2 seconds. These damage stack buffs will be a fundamental part of this build. This talisman can be obtained relatively early in game. It is located in Stillwater Cave, Urn of the Lakes, after defeating the boss located at the end of this cave. It is located here on the map. Now things get a bit complicated. There is a talisman that improves the version of the Winged Sword Insignia called Rotten Winged Sword Insignia that increases attack power by 6, 8 and 13%. It is obtainable after helping Millicent at the end of her quest line. So what's the problem, Uncle Major might ask? And the answer is, you also need another talisman called Millicent's Prosthetic, which is obtainable by doing the opposite thing in her quest line. Millicent's quest is long, like very long. If you don't know her quest, I'm pretty sure there are videos here on YouTube explaining it, but let me make it simple. First, you are going to get the Millicent's Prosthetics talisman, and the reason is because you can get it earlier than the Rotten Winged Insignia. And second, the Rotten Winged Insignia does not stack with Winged Sword Insignia, and you actually cannot equip both at the same time because the former is an upgraded version of the latter. But Millicent's Prosthetic does stack with Winged Sword Insignia and Rotten Winged Sword Insignia. That means in New Game you are going to focus getting the Millicent's Prosthetic, and only in New Game Plus you are going to get the Rotten Winged Sword Insignia. Okay, so Millicent's Prosthetics works just like the Winged Sword Insignias, but the damage increases are 4, 6 and 11%. Plus you gain 5 points in DEX with the talisman. To get it as soon as possible, when you reach the point in her questline where she's appeared near the Windmill Heights Site of Grace, this is where you defeated a Godskin Apostle. You can kill her to get the talisman from this point onward, be here in Altus Plateau, Mountain of the Giants or the Helic Tree. Every time you see her in another place up to the end of her quest, where you can choose to assist her or oppose her in a fight against her sisters, you can kill her. In the end, you need to have these talismans: Kinder of Wrath's Exaltation, aka
The Core.
Lord of Blood's Exaltation, aka
The
Winged Sword Insignia, and Millicent's Prosthetic. In the New Game Plus you replace the Winged Sword Insignia with Rotten Winged Sword Insignia. Now some talismans that can help you while you don't have the required ones. The Green Dog talisman is always good to have in a lot of builds. It helps with stamina and recovery speed. Because you won't be level up endurance until you reach the end of the game, sometimes a help with stamina recovery speed is a nice choice. It is located here in Glengrave, so quite early on you can get it, but you need one stone key to open the catacombs where it is located. Another one that might help is the Assassin's Crimson Dagger. Critical hits while using this talisman will heal you for 10% of your total health plus 85 points. I use this one a lot in early game as a source of healing, and because it disbuilds your reasonable nimble with Quick Step or Bloodhound Step, it was relatively easy to backstab a lot of enemies. It can also help you with healing when you are assist a host of fingers since the Flask of Crimson of Tears is halved. It is given by defeating the boss located at Death's Touch Catacombs here in Lingrave. Axe Talisman located here in Lingrave may be another one if you're using charging attacks, but that is really early on because charge attacks will be used less and less while you progress through the build. Otherwise the Claw Talisman is better because it boosts your jumping attacks that also stacks with the Raptor Black Feather chest armor. It is located in this relatively hidden tower in Castle Stormvale. One interesting characteristic of this build is that I rely a lot more on crafted items than any other build I have done so far. For example, because it doesn't have a range attack, I use poison bone darts and poison pots as a form of dealing damage at a distance, in case I need, for example, to aggro enemies instead of triggering their ambush setup. To craft these items, it will be required the Nomadic Warrior's Cookbook 14 for the Poison Bone Darts and Poison Pot, located at its Smoldering Church. Nomadic's Warrior Cookbook 8 for Poison Grease, which is located at Total War Skaven here on the map. Don't forget that you need to feed your Skaven like some Tamagotchi. You can feed your Exalted Flesh to buff your damage for 20%. The recipe to craft comes from the Armored Cookbook 3 that can be bought from the merchant located here in Lingrave. Maybe you are looking for some more defense status for your Tamagotchi Skaven. There are options for that. Biggie Bogart can sell you some stuff to help you out. But first you need to buy Rhea's necklace from him. Then you can talk to him again to be able to purchase Boiled Prowl, a consumable item that gives you 15% physical damage negation. And when we move to the mode at Altus Plateau, you can buy Boiled Crab from him. Boiled Crab? You can buy Boiled Crab from him, which is an improved version of the Boiled Prowl, give you a boost of 20% of physical damage negation. Because crabs are cool, and if you disagree, you are not my nephew anymore, I don't wish to speak with you ever again, and you are not cool, bitch. And just a quick note, do not try to use Exalted Flesh, Boiled Brown or Boiled Crab at the same time, because the effect of one overrides the other, so keep that in mind. A few more items will be required. Iron Wet Blade for Keen Affinity and Black Wet Blade for Occult and Poison Affinity. Iron Wet Blade is located at Stormvale Castle, near the Graft Scion, where there is a blocked doorway that needs a stone key to lock. It will be on a corpse guarded by 2 knights. The Black Wet Blade is located at Nokron, Eternal City, in this part of the map, really close to the Mimic Ether Spirit. When it comes to the Flax of Wonder subject, it is a must to have the Thorny Crack tier, which increases consecutive attacks, just like the Winged Sword Insignia or Millicent's Prosthesis. The bonus for this one is 9, 13 and 20%, so yeah, quite a lot. But it takes a long time to get it. It is rewarded by the Infinity Patrick avatar located here at Consecrate Snowfield. By the way, these items consumables that increases damage with consecutive attacks multiply themselves. That means the damage is even higher than the sum of the damage bonus that each item gives. The other slot for Flasks of Wonders is up to you which one you prefer. Only Thorny Crack tier is a must on this build. I went for the Green Crystal tier because I like the stamina regen speed. Now that is something that I almost never use in Elden Ring, Summon Spirits. But there is one that fits this build super nicely, the Giant Rat Spirits. Oh yeah, it's time to summon the Vermintide. Of course they are not great, but it fits the build theme like a glove, and they can help a lot against gank bosses, which this game loves a lot by the way. While you upgrade them, not only their health and attack increases, but also their numbers. You start with 2 and at the max level you will spawn 5 giant rats to assist you. They are located at West Windmill Pasture, near some fellow Skaven. Now, which grid rune should you use for this build? And the answer is, this build doesn't need a specific grade rune. You can choose whatever you think will assist you the most. So, that's it. Nothing more. I only added this chapter in case you will wonder which grade rune works best with this build. Ladies and gentlemen, now it's time for some fashion ring. Trying to make your tarnish look like a Skaven, it is not easy. The closest thing to a red face in game will be the wolf mask. It is located at the collapsed wall surrounding Sylva's Rise at Three Sisters. And to access Three Sisters, you need to defeat Royal Knight Loretta in Carrier Manor. So if you are not able to defeat her super early on, it's going to take a while to get it. I failed miserably trying to kill her early in game with my character, like level 20 or something, and she used my face as a rag to mop the water mirror in her arena. I tried other stuff like the imp head, but yeah, wolf mask it is. For chest armor I recommend Raptor's Black Feathers. Because of the fluffy look it is the close thing to a fur, and the bonus of the jump attack, which is quite useful. If you want something else, I suggest something lightweight. There are some options like leather armor, Vulgar's militia armor, or even bandit's garb that comes with the bandit class. For arms and legs, it's up to you. Pick something that makes your character looks nice with the rest of the armor. For example, I went for Highwayman gauntlets for arms and Vulgar militia greaves for legs. Like I said earlier in this video, there are two playstyles for this build. They are not very different from one another, but the first one is much more effective than the second. The second one is just more stylish and looks more like a gutted runner from Vermintide 2. About the first playstyle, it is very important to have two different claws and power stance them. Like I said in the weapon section of this video, you are going to set your right hand claw to occult affinity as soon as you can. That will make this claw be focused on dealing damage and proc bleeding. On your left hand, we will set the second claw to poison affinity. This claw will focus on build up, poison status effect, and will also help assist in bleeding build up because all claws have bleed status effect as default into them. The fast attacks of the claws will make all the other support items that I recommend throughout this video increase your attack power super fast. The consecutive attacks bonus stacks from talismans and flasks of wonders, status effects build up that triggered and will easily give your damage boost and blood loss damage. The second playstyle is quicker but not from that much. First difference is that you only need one claw, so that makes it easier to set up. You are going to two-handle the claw, which works exactly like Power Stance 2 claws. And then you simply use Poison Grease on the claw or use Poison Armament Incantation. You need to set the affinity to Keen because you cannot buff weapons with cold affinity. You are going to need a Sacred Seal to use the Poison Armament Incantation, and any seal will do. Pick something that requires the least amount of attribute points like the Claw Mark Seal or Finger Seal. To use it, simply have the claw equipped in your right hand and the seal in your left hand. Apply the Poison Armament Incantation on the claw and switch to the two-handle of the claw. And voila, both hands have poison effects on the claw. That is the minor difference between the playstyles. Everything else is the same, talismans, armor, whatever. But like I said, the first one is stronger. I could make this build stronger, but I didn't want to sway from the Skaven theme. So there you have, nephews, a gutter runner build for Elden Ring. I would like to ask you a little help with two things. Right now on the notification note and also on the video description, there are some voting pools I created for you to give me some feedback. These are very simple and short questions I have for you related to which topics should I add or remove to the next video. And also, if you are enjoying this video, make sure to, apart from subscribing, activating notification of my channel. That is the most important, because YouTube doesn't like the fact that my small channel doesn't flood the platform with a video every single day. The content of this channel is created by me alone, and I always prioritize quality over quantity. So that's it, nephews. I hope you like this video, and I see you in the next one.